The ACN podcast is made possible thanks to the generosity of our listeners and sponsors, including the Agile Alliance. As a nonprofit membership organization, the Agile Alliance is an excellent resource to help you along your Agile journey. To learn more about the Agile Alliance and our other sponsors, as well as how you can become a sponsor or supporter of our show, please visit acnpodcast.org for more information. And thank you for your support. Good morning and good evening, everyone. This is the Agile Coaching Network. I'm Ray, and joining me today, of course, is our co-host and conversation starters. We have the benefit of having Diana, Hendrik, Jorg. Shauna is not going to be here today. She had some other work and pressing issues that she had to deal with, so unfortunately she will not be here. We've got a fairly good mix here today. I see that a few people that you're brand new to Agile. Welcome to the community. One of the things that you'll note as you dig in deeper into the Agile space, especially if you look at the nonprofits that do the work in this space, like the Agile Alliance, who is our sponsor for this podcast as well as this live event. They are really about building community and how we work together effectively in Agile. If you are all not aware of this, is that the way we get it done is we actually rely on others who are a little bit further ahead of us and have conversations with them about how they do Agile within their space. And that's not to mean that you don't have anything to offer to the people who are more advanced in Agile. But when you join an Agile Alliance event, or if you become a member of the nonprofit, there's a whole bunch of community that you can join up with and to learn and to reflect your own Agile journey with a great group of people. As I said at the opening, we happen to be joined with part of that great community. Shauna, Hendrik, Jorg, Diana, as well as myself. We've been longtime members of the Agile Alliance, as well as we've been members of the community for a long time. We came together 67 episodes ago. This is the 67th episode, to start to share and give back some of the knowledge that we've learned, and also to create a space where we can have the conversation, the harder conversations about this thing called Agile coaching and the way that we can go off and approach it. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So one of the things that I was having discussion with a group of coaches a couple of weeks ago, and what they were bringing up was something that I think that we haven't really solved yet in the Agile community. And that is the role of the manager in an Agile company. Thinking about as you look at whether or not you're into SAFe, or whether or not you're into Scrum at Scale, or if you're into Nexus, or if you're into less, as you get more of the scaling that's going on in organizations, the higher up you get in the organization, you're starting to get even more questions about not just the first line manager of the organization that now has these two extra roles. If you're doing Scrum, you now have a product owner and you now have a Scrum lead or Scrum master to the old language. You struggle to manage what the manager's role in that is. And in the early days, we used to say, I've heard a lot of Scrum trainers and back, a couple years back, actually a decade back, they would say the managers had no role within a Scrum environment. And you might think that today, but still in large corporations, we have managers, we have hierarchies. And I'm seeing this pattern of coming out with the super manager who thinks that they can be both the manager, the product owner, the Scrum leader, and they can also be at sometimes the part-time developer. They're just the super people that you see across the organization. And, this pattern doesn't work very well, especially because of all of the different roles that a manager has to go play. If they do a little bit of each, they can't do that really any one of them very effectively. We've learned that a long time ago when we were doing Agile development. And if you think about, this super leader, different things that they're supposedly been given to go do, a lot of the operating system of what was trained to them originally was that they were originally brought up to that they were the ones who were to be the director of the employees and administer the tasks that are provided to them. They were the ones that were to provide feedback on the performance. They were, the person who was that was giving the information from on high and bringing it down and was the communicator outside of the team, all the way down to they were the planner of the objectives and the strategy. So it's by no means that this group of people are not confused when Agile comes into the system, because a lot of the things that they were originally tasked with, some of that gets disseminated into different places. Now, to add to the confusion of all of this, and I just did like an image search with the word Agile Manager and seen what came up, and I'm big on whenever I'm like researching a particular item, I'll do an image search to see who might have drawn a picture of something. And in this particular case, I came up with things where you take the sort of the more traditional Scrum view of the world, where the person becomes the servant leader, was one of the pictures. Another picture that came up was, sort of this Pareto between the traditional manager and the Agile manager, and how much of it was no longer being done by the individual, to even just some vaguer lists, and even then some other ones that were very specific that was actually getting into still allocation of tasks and other things. So it's by no means that the people who are managers today and as coaches, as we're coming into the group, I see no reason why these people are not confused. And the prompting question for today is, what should the Agile manager be? And I know that that's a fairly broad topic, but specifically for Agile to be successful in organizations, I want to hear the perspective of this group about what we expect or what we need managers to be within an Agile organization. And with that, I'd like to also dig into that, as since we are coaches and helping those people to get there, what do we need to do to help to transform them to whatever that view is? And then in large companies, I'll put, because everyone gets measured in large companies, how do we measure that change? And how should we look at it that they're progressing towards those goals? Jorg, did you want to take a first shot at this?
Yeah, I like to, because I think this discussion is still valid, as you said, and I have the probably benefit never to have been asked to really do that superpower management in any of my positions. So I could always take the view that what is needed of a manager is what the team needs to succeed. So it's all about people in the end. They are doing the work, they are having the smart ideas, they are actually even buying our products. So if you look at the people and can detect what they need, what keeps them from achieving more, what they are spending their time with that you think is not the best thing to do, then try to level this up in some way. If people don't know where to go, yes, find out the target setting, but always keep in mind, if you don't need to do this job, you can do a more important job. There's always something more challenging, more even interesting ahead for you if you enable the others to do it. And so in a way, I've touched all the things that you've seen one time or the other, but I've never been the best at any of them, especially not for a long run, because finding and motivating the right people to do it and really take pride in the result, and then just be there for questions, but otherwise just go away and help the next team, person, whatever, and bring that up. That is what I think a manager should do. And I think the difference or position stretched between actually making the hard decisions, because some things you just need to do to move things, but not saying I'm here to move things. That is a contradiction that you somehow have to square that circle, moving things forward and next time allowing others to move it forward. And that gradually enough not to be too disruptive, because people just change slowly. Other than technology, where you just push the next operating system to your stuff, and you're up there, and that goes as fast as people can develop. Humans change slowly, so don't do it too hard on them. And I think that's what the coaches need to exemplary show, that there is a way of achieving and letting go, and achieving, and that trade-off, and measuring it in the large corporations. Get the feedback from the people that are in the team and that get the services of the team, and then inspect the change that is happening and incentivize the positive change that you see and that you desire. And that's the interesting thing, because some of this will be probably surprising. And so it will be really great to have a measurement incentive of bringing something new to the table. Probably would motivate people to grow faster.
Thank you for that. Hendrik, what do you think about that? And by the way, welcome back, Hendrik. We haven't had you for a few of the recordings, so I'm happy to have you back.
Busy times. I have a new job, and that consumes a lot of attention and bandwidth. Yes. This is a huge topic, as you said, Ray, and there are so many aspects to it. But when I want to boil it down to, then I would think it's maybe two main things that what I think an agile manager should be. Okay, maybe three. The first thing is be a human being. That's maybe the base of everything. So come in with a lot of vulnerability and humanness to create a safe environment. But to be more specific also on what are the two key things that I'm looking for when I think about a manager in Agile is, on the one side, I think an Agile manager is enabling and empowering. And on the other side, it's a system shepherd. And let me explain this briefly. So enabling and empowering. So what does empowering really mean? How can we empower people? How can we put people into the power of determining things? And what you want is you want to decentralize decision making. You don't want to be the bottleneck in everything. And to create this empowerment, you need to help people to keep a contextual awareness of the entire space of customer needs, market situations, and all these things, organizational things. So you need to supply them with vision and context. Then the second aspect that empowers them is that they, of course, need to have the competences and skills as a team to do the task that's needed. So where are we going? Do you have the right competences and skills to get there? And then do you have the means in forms of tools and, I don't know, development environments and all this stuff? So that's for me a bit in the domain of empowering and enabling. And a manager, I think, needs to help a team to have all that. The second big branch is what I always call is the system shepherd. It's a manager is overseeing the organizational system, and especially in large organizations, there is so many organizational parts that are entangled and codependent. There is not the one team that is creating customer value alone. It's often there is a correlation and dependencies with other teams. So often we have, I always call it, we have value creation islands that need to be interacting to create the value for the customer. And as a system shepherd, such a manager is overseeing the system and helping to identify together with the involved teams to what can we do to improve this organizational system? What are system things that, for example, like how's the flow through the system, or are people empowered and enabled everywhere? Where do we need maybe further roles or whatever? So those are maybe the two main aspects: enabling and empowering, and the system shepherd.
I'm kind of curious because you have stepped in and out of the manager role, correct? With Agile teams?
Yes.
Throughout your career?
I've just stepped back into a management role. So I was an in-house consultant and a bit like a coach, organizational coach for the last 5 years. And now since a couple of weeks, I'm really a manager deep in the operations again. So I'm just switching back again, you could say.
So I'm kind of curious now that you're switching in that role. Now, what do you see as your biggest challenge with holding what you just said?
Well, the biggest challenge is being the system shepherd, because now I'm in a large organization. It's 1,000 people there, and I'm now seeing how parts of this organizational system do not fit together in the best possible way. And now, of course, I'm leveraging tremendously on my coach experience from the last 5 years. I now need to guide this organization towards a better cohesion. That's the biggest challenge I have at the moment.
Okay, thank you for that. Diana, hello.
Yes, hi, Ray. I love this topic. This is a topic that's been on my mind for a very, very long time. And as I just went and did a little quick background search, and I realized Esther Derby and I wrote an article in 2004 called "You're Still Needed," focused on managers who are freaking out because Agile was telling them they had no role to play anymore. And just in the fall of 2019, I updated it in an article on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to look that up, they can. And Tricia Broderick and I have just finished, and that's in the publication process of a new book called Lead Without Blame, Building Resilient Learning Teams, which is not only Agile focused, but certainly relevant and available for pre-order now. But so this is a thing that I've been thinking about for a very long time and has been on my mind. And everything, I mean, you know, joining the choir, everything that Hendrik and Jörg talked about is absolutely true. But I think along with what Hendrik was talking about in terms of the system, I think, you know, managers need to also kind of manage the boundary. So they are both, they're like more than the Scrum Master, if you're using Scrum. The manager is a liaison to the broader organization, and a liaison in the sense of bringing in information and taking out information and advocating. And that is a role no one on the team wants to play. It would completely distract them from their value delivery work, right? So that is why managers are central in this role, but their role shifts a bit. It changes. They need to think they're no longer managing individual contributors. They are managing teams. And that is a different perspective, a different point of view, and just requires some different skills. And one of the I guess failure patterns that I see in a lot of Agile adoptions is the focus is all on the teams, and all the starting happens with the teams. And at least in parallel, if not ahead of time, we need to be preparing managers for their roles in supporting those teams. And they need coaching, and they need training, and they need help as well to make that shift. Because while they will still use a lot of the same skills they have been using, they are also going to have to unlearn some skills, and they're going to need to take on some new skills depending on how they've been managing before. So I think, you know, what an Agile manager should be, we've been talking about, all three of you have brought up some of those new kind of roles. But I think another thing an Agile manager should be is an Agile manager should be supported. Get the support, the coaching, the training, the organizational shift by their bosses to encourage them to take on this new role and be successful in it. That needs to happen too. And that's a thing I see missing in so many Agile adoptions.
Just to dig into one thing that you brought up, which interests me, because still in large companies today, even though we're building teams, we still have the artifact of the reviews that the manager has to go write. And they end up breaking teams apart at the end of the year, and they get individually measured versus measured as a team. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, I mean, some of the managers that I respect the most find ways to push back against that. they may go to each team member and they may ask them, how have I been helping you? What other help did you need from me? What were you able to accomplish this year that that you had to do on your own because I wasn't there for you? What did I help you do? And how, you know, how is the whole team doing from your perspective, and keeping that team member perspective. And what do you want me to say in your performance review, basically? I mean, I just was talking to someone the other day, and that's what they did this year. They just went to each team member and said, well, hey, I've got to do this performance review on you, and here are the questions, and what do you want me to say, right? Mm-hmm. How supported do those team members feel? And then asking those team members, how are you interacting with the team? How can we help the team? How can you and I together help the team be better, do better, you know, whatever that looks like. And they have in one particular organization that I know of, they have created a career ladder for both team members and Agile managers that really is very focused on how are we supporting the learning goals of the team, of the organization? What, you know, in what way have I contributed to that this year? And that's how I get measured in that organization. That's how the Agile manager gets measured. So I think there are ways and ways, you know. I mean, sometimes you have to do things in kind of a stealth way. In that same organization, HR heard about what this manager was doing, looked at the outcomes of how that performance review was conducted and how it worked, and that's why they created the new Agile Manager Career Ladder, or the new Manager Career Ladder. Okay. So when you can show that it's being successful, even largish organizations can change their mind, but you may have to do a little bit of stealth work to begin with.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. I think that one perspective that we had to do, and this is at a prior life, we actually changed the structure of the manager's review, and it was more focused on building org capabilities first and foremost. It wasn't, you know, the older reviews was they would get credit for the deliveries that the teams were making, you know, much more into the focus of, did you pass out the right work to the team members to get the value? And then it was shifted. It was shifted into the bigger context of learning and making sure that, yeah, they were a part of those goals. So thank you for that insight. That I appreciate that. Sheila, are you there?
I am here, and I love this question or this topic. Interestingly, I had a conversation about this topic last week because I was that person. I was the manager. I was the person who directed the teams and the people. I had, I don't know how many people that were working in my group, and I helped out wherever I thought the team could use my help, and I managed, and I've never really been a task assigner, because I've always thought that people, you know, I tell people what is needed, and then however they want to create the tasks for themselves. But I pivoted when I realized that I had to go into more of an agile way of working. I kind of changed my role, and I went from being the agile manager, from being the manager, the director of software development for this group of people, to really being the agile transformation manager and helping the teams move over to more agile and reorganizing the team and getting a lot of input, and then becoming kind of the coach because everybody on the teams and everybody who did report to me was you're very used to command and control. So you're kind of waiting for people to tell you what to do. So now my job as a manager was get everybody empowered and have them understand what that empowerment meant, because it's not something that people just all of a sudden do. You don't get developers who have been developing under that system for so many years to then all of a sudden self-organize. So my job as a manager became very different and became helping the team get to that way of working, and more of being a coach, being the protector of the team, and being that super servant leader, servant leader to the entire group of people that I had. That's my story.
I went through a very similar journey a long time ago, because my first Agile was not as a developer. My Agile implementation was as a manager. So I'm kind of curious. You're in that journey right now. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable now being in that role?
I've gone past that. I felt so comfortable in it, and I really liked it so much that I went into Agile consulting, because I loved that journey. I loved being able to make that journey. I loved being able to help the teams understand Agile, and I feel that what I went through really helps me as an Agile coach, because I can understand the different aspects of that change because I've been there.
Awesome. I feel all of that because I think about the fact that when I switched over to being more of a coach than being a manager was an interesting, you sort of woke up to it one morning, I guess. Because the demands were always still from the upper management that, are you driving your team? Are you driving your team to getting this stuff done? And I would always have to start to communicate to them, especially after we got more successful, about, let me show you how I'm doing this differently, and hopefully getting more managers involved.
Yeah, I have to say that's one of the interesting things when you talk about the measurement. Like, my personal measurement with my team was different than what was expected of me one step up. And I wanted people to give me, as Diana was saying, kind of give me your self-evaluation. How do you think you did as a contributor to the team? How do you think the team did overall? And I didn't do this on an annual basis. This was more like a quarterly self-evaluation of, your own introspective kind of thing. But the things that the management above me wanted were, as you're saying, who's doing what. Like, I want a breakdown of what this person did and what that person did. And, and what I try to do is explain, here's what we did as a team. And it blows away anything that we've done before. So the way we're working now is, this is the results that you're getting, and trying to explain these new measurements.
It's always the fun part of the journey. Well, thank you for sharing your journey on that. I'm glad you're where you're at. That's a cool transition. I believe it's Israel. Is that am I pronouncing your name correctly? And I apologize if I got your name correctly.
That is correct. I am Israel.
Welcome.
I have a manager who has several Agile teams that I've been coaching with. And one of the things that we have to work on is there's this gravitational pull toward sources of what people think are relief or help or accommodation. And when the manager can fill that position, the members of the team will gravitate toward that resource. But it's not necessarily the best resource. And so when I talk to management and say, so you have people coming to you and talking to you about these issues that they're having in the teams, do you ask them, did you take this to the team? Have you talked to the team about it? What does the team say? So trying to convince management, maybe partly because, they're overwhelmed with all of the other stuff they have to do, rely on these teams. And I always go back to that because I really strongly feel like we hire these fantastically brilliant people to solve really, really hard problems. And we ask them to come to work every day and do their best work at solving these challenging issues. But then something that has to do with, how well is the team working, or, what are the needs of the individual members? We don't ask the team to pick that up. And so I try to, help management understand that if you really want a self-managing, self-contained team, then, people are going to have to feel like they can go back to the team and get what they need there instead of having to leap out of the team. And as I got thinking about that, because that's been part of my formulation for a while, it occurs to me that you can ask the question from the opposite direction. You can say, well, why do you keep going to the manager? What does the manager provide for you? And when you widen that question out to the whole team, it becomes almost a discussion of a team working agreement. When do we go to management? What does the management provide for us? Why do we need management? This sort of thing. And it's a conversation that I would want to have with the team. And I could almost imagine that if you were to do that well and do that properly, you could start to even have that person with a management role be counted among the members of the development group in the team. They're just a different kind of developer, one that has expertise in the resources outside of the team and navigating the challenges of the business on behalf of the team. So just like I might have, someone who is capable at doing operations or engineering, who has to reach out to a vendor or make sure that systems are up and running somewhere. This management role in the team can be just another development resource. But in order to get to that point, you have to get management on board, willing to reflect these questions and these concerns and needs back, the people who have them back to the team to get what they need. And then you have to convince the team to welcome that management role into their midst and confide in them. Because we always talk about, this kind of division. I always have the management who say, am I invited to retro? Why am I not invited to retro? Can I come to retro? Well, yeah, you can. You can come to a retro where the team knows that you're going to be there and is willing to have you take part in that role, but don't be surprised if the team has a second retro later where they can freely discuss things that they couldn't feel comfortable discussing in your midst. But that, can we take that wall down? Can we, find our way into a place where if management is excited to be a part of the team because the team supports them, then they're going to be excited to support the team because they feel free, just like the team members feel free when they're self-managed. So I think about the reverse Conway maneuver. So many of the teams that I work with are based on how the organizational structure was laid out, which of course dictated how the software was developed. And a lot of times the management are the people who rose through the ranks, to some point where they needed to be promoted into management. And they're often seen as, this gravitational force. And so, I think going back and thinking about how we organize teams and how we organize our product development, there are my thoughts. And I'm excited about, the opportunity of changing the way we think about how managers interact with teams as well.
Thank you for your insights. I mean, there's two things that really resonate with me. I know that because I used to have this coaching bag that I used to have, even when I was a manager, I still had this bag that was given to me. There was two phrases on there. One was, well, there was more phrases, but the ones I pick up on is take it to the team, which is if the decision can be made by the group, let the group make the decision, and use the organizational brain. The last one is treat people like adults. which I think when you said that we hire these people in and then we subordinate them to where their ideas can't even come out. We put too much control system on that. So I appreciate both of those insights. I think that's really cool. I think you're on a good path. Harkashani?
Yeah. Now, my point, there are 2 points that I want to make. One, an agile leader, and it's very hard to become one, is to be inspiring. When I say inspiring, that I go back to, the earlier statements there. To be inspiring, also need them to be helped with, because there are significant biases that every manager, every person has built in over a period of their experiences. So make them aware of their biases and need a lot of, hand holding them. And that's where a lot of time need to be spent, how they are. And sometimes we need to be, you look at Bill Joyner's work on, expert leadership and catalyst leadership. So the idea is to move people closer to catalyst leadership as possible. Then we can possibly call them as more agile leaders. Than it doesn't mean that the expertise leadership is bad or anything, but we still need to make that shift for people towards catalyst leadership. So inspiring, which need help from different aspects, holding the space. That doesn't mean that, and also sometimes bringing in, you get your hands dirty at times, be an equal to the team, go to them, and then as someone mentioned earlier, you need to go and ask them what is that they want from me as a leader. So that being, and sometimes even getting the hands dirty with them and doing something with them, spending a day, spending a couple of days, and then spending, being an equal with them and trying to understand what they're going through is something that will help be connected with the teams all the time. Bringing an external perspective, say for example, there are many aspects. It could be diversity and inclusion. It could be sustainability. It could be environmental impact. That is every organization now is caring for. Now, bringing those external, I would say, objectives, which is not always in the focus of the team, and how do you connect those aspects to the objectives of the team? It could be something that could connect to the work that you're doing with, an environment impact. That and how do you reduce, for example, carbon emissions or whatever. So essentially, those external bigger issues that the world is facing and connecting to the daily work of people will make them inspiring as a leader for you, right? So that's something. These are the points that I want to bring to the table, which may help us to become better agile leaders.
Yeah, I like your perspective, especially Catalyst leaders. If you want, do you want to share with the group what Catalyst leader is specifically?
I don't want to go to the details of it, but I would refer Bill Joyner's work on that. Of course, if you have some more.
Well, no problem. I think you sort of hinted at it, which is, lead with a vision. And yeah. If you think of bringing people together, you also expect that you're not you surround yourself by people that, complement your own skills, and you assemble teams in a way that from a blend perspective, it's kind of close to getting into the synergistic leadership styles as well. But, I think you're spot on with that, which is the fact that if you put yourself into that mindset that this is now my job to be the catalyst to mixing things together and getting the right people in the room to have the right conversation with things, that's a valuable skill. It's a very key skill to organizations. And so versus the expert where you just know everything, and that's totally impossible to do in big situations. But I appreciate you sharing your insight on all of this. Maximilian, what do you have on this?
Greetings from Austin, Texas. I would like to say something that I've observed in my 12 plus years of leading agile transformations is that I learned a lot of times that it's not about roles. It's not about roles. And sometimes our mindset, a lot of people are stuck in roles, as in, I'm a Scrum Master, I'm an Agile coach, I'm an Agile manager. And I see a lot of teams that do very well without per se being managed. And so and I think a lot of people have hinted to that. And I've just seen that more and more smaller groups of people, like even 2 or 3 people, with all the AI that's available and all the tool sets, they can do massive projects. And, with all these like no code features and all the various things, it's coming to the point that teams might in the near future, and it's happened already, shrink in size, and kind of thinking of a manager per team just feels a little bit like as an overhead. And then it comes to be more like what we've started to experience in my environment is multiple small pods that are kind of all under more of a director senior role that also works as like a person that clears impediments from an organizational perspective. So a little bit of an agile coaching hat on the agile best practices to teams, especially new people that are there. But it's interesting how we've kind of seen that the role per se is not important, and as per se in some scenarios like this one that we're experiencing, the manager role is not one that's critical, but there still needs to be a higher up role that helps to clear things from an organizational perspective and address a bunch of other things that, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into the details. But I just like to conclude with saying it's interesting to see how we don't actually have that immediate need for a manager role. So it kind of got dispersed, things changed, even from an HR perspective. A single person could handle much more of that across all these different pods. And it's just interesting to see how when you're not so role-based or structured in a way that maybe we've thought for decades, there could be some new solutions.
Those are really great. The evolution of just management, as you said, I think that's perfect. Scott, what do you have on this?
Well, hey, Ray, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm in San Diego, California, but I still got a little bit of that New Yorker in me since.
There you go. I've never been to New York. Actually, I have been, but I grew up in San Jose, California. So
yeah, I think I've been in San Diego now longer than I was in New York. So maybe I'm an official San Diegan at this point. I don't know. So I am the enterprise agile coach for a large, old manufacturing company. And agile transition, of course, starting with the questions, why, what do you need? Why do you want to change? How do you want to improve? Leads into dealing with managers that have been in place for a very long time is quite a challenge. And I'll say, just to make a few points on the subject, how do you change, or how do you help transition people that have been part of an organization for 20 or 30 years and doing things a certain way, and now they're hearing that, well, there's better ways to do things and we can solve more problems or deal with issues or whatever by becoming more of an agile company. I think there's a few like smaller points that I try to focus on, because this management structure is in place and we don't want to tell people they don't have a job anymore, right? We want to help transition them into something that's really going to support the organization and support the teams and help move things forward in a positive direction. So one of the things that, when I'm teaching a class, and my voice is a little rough because I taught a class all day yesterday, especially when there's managers in the rooms, are the first challenge that I lay out for them. So, example, one of the somewhat large organizational managers I was working with a little bit ago, he was working 17-hour work days, and he had a team of 40 some people. And, he was already interested in Agile and trying to get things started, but it was just, I'm in a command and control environment, and you know, how can we gain these benefits, even to him on a personal level? So I said, well, let's understand how all these studies around teams, particularly, you know, that fit into Agile definition, but it's more than just that. It's, you know, what makes the most effective teams, and some of the basic aspects that come out of one of the classes I teach is, you know, teams, small, dedicated, cross-functional, persistent. But if you go by that rule of thumb and you're thinking about how do I make this happen to help, you know, drive my organization and create, you know, positions beneath me, empower and educate and train new leaders and all the things that come as a result of that, they have a major problem to solve right to begin with. And I'm like, one of the initially the most useful things that you can do is to solve these problems. How do you take this large team that you have, break it up into smaller effective teams, and try to meet these things? Because we know that your teams will deliver more if you can have them small, dedicated, cross-functional, and persistent. So help them with those definitions. And I think that as I see some of the managers that I'm working with that embrace this, their lives actually get better, and they're empowered, and they're empowering people beneath them, and they begin to, you know, hand down the responsibilities and grow new leaders and stuff. But it's that transitional period to meet some of the basic ideas of how to create teams is one of the early steps that I really embrace as enterprise coach. And then if you're looking at longevity as an Agile manager beyond some of your initial steps, I think one of the most important things I encourage managers to do, I'm like, you've been in this organization a long time, you have a lot of political connections, you have a lot of knowledge on, you know, the product and product development and solving problems and things like that. If we're training our teams to effectively communicate blockers and impediments, I kind of teach them as separate things, where a blocker is something a team can solve themselves, and impediments are something they need outside help on. Become a champion for your team or teams, right? Most of the managers I work with have many teams under them at this point. So being a champion, working with both the product owner and Scrum Master or Scrum Leader to not only communicate, but influence other managers and other parts of the organization where some impediment within your teams is highly dependent on outside help. So I know those are kind of minor points, but I think they're really important points to help support people becoming Agile managers.
No, I appreciate the input on that, and I fully agree with everything you just said. Diana, Hendrik, or Jorg, did you guys want to have any final thoughts on this topic?
Well, it's wonderful to hear all these stories that people are telling, and I'm really appreciating the opportunity to hear how people are handling this on the ground. It's something I'm always interested in, and so I'm really grateful to folks for telling their stories. You know, very few programs. The only one I really know at Golden Gate University is in their, I can't remember what department it's in, some part of the business department. Ainsley Neese has been teaching a graduate course in Agile management for a number of years now. She's retiring from it at this point, but they have so much. I guess my reflection is what she has told me about the demand that they have for people who want to get in that course. You know, managers, everybody wants to do the best they can, you know, and so for some of us who are maybe a little more senior, being available to help with that transition, you know, they want to have the fun too. So so anyway, I guess that's my point of view. It's like compassion. People often, that whole ethic of we don't need no stinking managers, right? And the early days of Agile came from, you know, real misunderstanding between development teams and their managers and what they did. And so the more we can facilitate that understanding about, like somebody was talking about, it's just a different role, just has different things to do. Doesn't mean those things aren't needed. It's stuff what I discovered early on, before I was even in the Agile world doing team development in organizations that wanted to move to team-based, that when we started telling the teams, at that time they were calling them self-managing teams, not self-organizing or whatever. When we started telling the teams what they would need to do to fulfill that self-managing role, nobody wanted to go to the safety meetings. Nobody. They wanted to stay doing the work they love to do. And so that's part of, why Esther and I wrote the article about you're still needed. There's still things that we need good managers to do. And if we can have compassion for how hard that job is too as well, we'll be better off.
I think that's a beautiful way to close all of this. I want to thank everyone for your participation today. This is probably, a really complex thing to unpack, but I think there was a lot of great ideas that came through here. I think that what I would love to see, by the way, is more fresher articles come up. I think, Deanna's book, which is something that I'm going to be digging around to finding that and reading that myself. The thing to note is kind of switching gears over to some of the upcoming events. As you know, XP is coming up. It's going to be in Copenhagen. I think it's in the next month, correct?
It's in June.
Yeah,
it's in June.
It has a fantastic leadership track. I just can promote that. Not shameless.
Shameless promotion there.
It's part of the program. Diana and me will be there.
Yeah.
But for people, we're starting to get live events going again. So one thing is XP having been there I think been there 4 or 5 times. It's a great event. It's a combination of both academia and industry getting together, talking about Agile topics. It's a great experience. If you get a chance to go to it, please go take a look at that and go attend. I think you'll have fun with it. The other one, of course, is Agile 2022. We are doing the Business Agility Lab again this year. We're going to be doing it live, which is going to be exciting. I'm one of the track owners for that. It's going to be, you get to come into the conference, and there's a mini conference within the conference. We're doing a week-long workshop on different subjects about Agile transformation work, and hopefully you can come join that and find that track when you join in with that. The other one, by the way, is the Agile Testing Days event in Chicago, I think is coming up in June as well. Give them a look. I mean, if you've been to the European event, and I've been there several times as a speaker, absolutely wonderful event that you should get a chance to attend. And they just don't go over just test topics. They go over a broader set of Agile topics as well, but they kind of take that kind of twist towards, especially if you're a test professional. It's a great place to go, and a great group of people to hang around and learn with. With that, we have our next Agile Coaching Network live event is going to be on Friday, May 27th. I'm sorry about some of the months get a little bit longer. I know that I got a couple emails that said, hey, I thought we were the 3rd Friday. And sometimes, depending on schedules, they do get switched out a week or so. But we will be meeting on May 27th. And I look forward to talking to you all then. And I hope you have a great month. This podcast is provided by Agile Alliance for educational and informative purposes only. To find out more information about the member-supported Agile Alliance, please go to agilealliance.org to find out about more upcoming events, as well as different programs that are available to help you with your Agile journey.